Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Nerdy Old Men podcast. This is your buddy, the Old Bald Man, Chad, and I'm here with my sidekick because he is the Robin to my Batman, and I hate it when he wears those little shorts. Here is Redneck Wes.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, you know you love those shorts. I mean, he's the Harley to my Joker, folks. What can
That's
I
a
say?
little jacked up, dude. You ain't no Joker, sir. I know Joker.
well-
You are no Joker.
But Chad and I have a lot of fun on the show, and we don't take ourselves too serious. But on this episode, which is our 25th episode, by the way,
25.
I mean, that's hard to believe, and we're sitting close to 1,000 downloads. So thank you all so much for that.
Absolutely,
But,
yes.
Today, if you haven't already guessed, we're talking sidekicks.
Yes, and not just the what you would think of, and we'll touch on it, the comic book sidekicks, but we're going to just venture out and BS and
Sidekicks in
drag
general.
drag you along on the ride. So, yeah, you know what? I mean, again, since I started out with the joke about the Batman and you being the Robin, Batman and Robin. My favorite DC is Batman, and he was one of my favorite characters. You know, one of the very first cosplays I ever did was Batman, and it sweated my guts out, and I ended up selling it. But you know how that goes. But
well, I mean, Batman and Robin's probably
that's what you think of.
Say the most recognizable.
Well, right.
Sidekick
That's
duo.
what you think of. You know, and of course, Robin has evolved through different characters over time. You know, Dick Grayson being the first one, the young, and, started with an 8-year-old. I guess it was 8-year-old acrobat, and with the Flying Graysons. And Batman takes him under his wing, and then he grows up,
Becomes
so,
Nightwing.
That's right. So they got to get another one. And
there was like a bajillion.
Well, there was a
different
few, and
Robins,
when I did the research for the show, Jason Todd came in, and
which is probably everybody's second favorite.
yeah,
Robin.
right. But apparently there was some weirdness about it, and so DC made a poll.
Yeah, they
to
had
whether they wanted
on
to,
it in the
whether to
comics,
kill him or
whether-
not. Yeah,
and they voted to kill him.
yeah, and the
fans did. It
the
was
Joker
800 numbered.
right, and the Joker killed him in the Death of the Family, which is a pretty wicked.
It's a
storyline
good-
there,
yeah,
right?
good story.
But then he comes back as Red Hood, which is kind of cool. But
And that's when everybody really liked him.
yeah, 'cause he's got guns and stuff,
He's got
right?
guns like that. Screw it, shoot them all.
Yeah, well, and then Tim Drake, which I don't have a lot of personal knowledge about. I guess maybe I just haven't. I didn't read much as him.
They
being the
liked him
Robin.
better as Robin than he wasn't as popular as Dick, but he was
But it says
more likable.
it says when I looked it up in the New 52, it was Red Robin.
Yeah, that's when he wore the hood and used
Right.
the bow staff.
Right. Oh yeah. But then they got again. I'm looking through these notes. That Stephanie Brown was Robin.
Yeah, I think that was the Frank Miller
I have no idea on that one.
Batman. What was it? The Dark Knight Returns.
Tim Drake's girlfriend
I
is who that was. Okay. But then actually one that I did read that I kind of like because he's crazier than hell was Damian Wayne,
Oh yeah, Bruce's son.
Bruce and Talia al Ghul's son. So the dude's crazy as hell because
he was
both
trained by the League of
because both,
Assassins.
right. Well, both mom and dad have issues. You know what
You
I'm saying?
think?
So I don't know. You know me. I kind of like that. I thought that, but I tell you, I mean, that I'm a toy collector and I like some modern action figures too. Well, McFarlane, one of my favorite comic book artists, he's partnered with DC and they're making these 6 or 7 inch action figures, which are extremely awesome. And they've got a Damian Wayne coming out, and he's got like ninja throwing stars and stuff like that. And
Has he got the katana?
Yeah,
Usually
he's
got,
so
like, a
cool,
katana with
man.
him.
He's so cool looking. And I've got to find that sucker when it comes out.
He's
to
like
put
a
with one of my
10-year-old with like a 30-year-old attitude.
Oh yeah, like a very demented one. Again,
Well, he's not above like
Apple doesn't fall from the tree, with both of those.
Yeah,
but that's again. I figured we needed to start with that because even people who don't really follow comics or anything, when you talk sidekicks,
Well, Batman and Robin.
you got to think about Batman and Robin.
I mean, that just kind of, like you said, it's the first one that comes to mind, and I always think of the old Adam West show.
Yes.
With Burt Ward as
Yes.
Robin. That's always been like
there are some, and you probably know, there are some funny stories about those two working together on that show.
Oh, yeah.
And I heard some of them on one of Kevin Smith's podcasts, and how it was like Burt Ward's like first week on the show or something, and they're filming him and Adam West in the Batmobile, but it's supposed to go like crashing through a wall or something. And so Burt's all ready for it, and Adam West gets out of the Batmobile, and a stunt double gets in it. But there isn't one for Burt. And I don't know if I remember the story right, but he got like burned or something during the stunt. It was something crazy.
It must have been that red shirt. They thought it was a star.
I guess, I don't know. But it's funny. If I could ever find it, I'll post it on our social media if I can find that again, because I think it was when Kevin Smith was actually interviewing Burt Ward or something, I think. But it was hilarious.
I remember, interviews that I've seen with him, and he kind of got less of a star treatment.
Yeah, he got shafted quite a bit. He really was a sidekick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to get all the screen time. You go over there and get your ass beat. Okay.
But, that makes me think, though, you talk about, him not getting, really was the sidekick, the second fiddle. Makes me think of Bucky Barnes.
Okay, all right.
Because most people know him from the movies, But originally, Bucky was a kid sidekick for Captain America, because that was the thing. Was you had the hero who was an adult, and the sidekick was always a kid.
Right, just like the original Batman and Robin, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and Bucky he died in the comics, and it really wasn't talked about a lot, except for maybe like flashbacks. They would be telling something that happened in World War II, and Cap would be reminiscing about Bucky. And then I want to say like 04, 07, somewhere around in there, they brought Bucky back, but they made him the Winter Soldier, where he's the Russian Hydra agent. And he's fighting Cap, he's helping Cap, he's fighting Cap, he's helping, and that was really cool, because they brought this character. I had read somewhere it's like, there was like two people that stayed dead, or seemed like they were always going to stay dead, and it was Uncle Ben and Bucky Barnes.
Right.
And they brought Bucky back, and in the movies it was great, because you saw the friendship where Bucky was the hero and Steve was the sidekick, and then he gets the super soldier serum and the tables are flipped. And then later on, Bucky really kind of becomes an equal, which, like I said, most people know the films, and that's their knowledge. But yeah, at one time, Bucky was the kid sidekick. So.
I have to have a confession here, because you're talking about the MCU. You know that I haven't always been caught up on everything.
Talk real slow for you.
Yeah, no. I'm catching up, and I will tell you what got me to catch up is freaking WandaVision. And we won't say anything about it, because there's no spoilers on this show, because we'll hunt you down like a dog if we do spoilers. But I watched the series finale this morning, and I'm not crying, you're crying. And it is fantastic. And now I need to catch up on the couple of films that I have not seen. And my kid is all over my butt about it, Abby. She's seen them all, and she's like, I can't believe you haven't watched that. I'm like, I know. I get this shit from Wes. Shut up. And,
I can't feel that. Help me feel I've been some kind of influence on that child.
You
my
have,
job is done.
as the Godfather. that has been your role. But just on a sidetrack, man, that is awesome. But to pose a question to that, I know you've seen part of the series, I guess.
I haven't got to watch the last episode, because I have jumped ahead, and my wife has threatened to beat me. So
and that's understandable, sir. Yes, sir. But I am telling you, man. I watch. I know we're getting on a little bit of a tangent, but I watch a YouTube video after every episode, and I do the same thing for The Mandalorian. This guy has a YouTube channel called Screen Crush. I don't know if you've ever seen that or not, but he's very, very good, and he goes into depth at all these Easter eggs and things you might have missed, and backstories on a lot of these pop culture geek nerd shows. So I'll watch an episode of Mando or WandaVision, and then I'll go and watch the Screen Crush video, and that has actually helped me fill in some of the gaps in my own nerd knowledge. So just a shout out to Ryan Airy is the guy's name at Screen Crush. He's badass.
He does a really good job.
Yeah, really funny, and he always throws in a your mom joke in every video, so that endears him to me. He point out a character and go, "This character is played by your mom," or whatever, and it's great. So anyway, check that out. But circling back around, and I hate that freaking. I can't believe I said that. Just kill me now. Just kill me now.
No, 3, 2, 1.
No, I'm going to leave that in there. Just kill me now. Okay. But anyway, let's say the Scarlet Witch and Vision. Wanda and Vision. Who's the sidekick in that arrangement?
Oh gosh, I would say Vision, just for the simple fact that there are times he is a little more naive about certain things, and then there's times that Wanda is. But being a comic guy, I'm like, she's a mutant. She didn't get her power. This is all wrong.
Yeah. Well, hey. Yeah.
But I go back to the joke that he made in Age of Ultron when he's speaking with Ultron, and he says, "Well, I was born yesterday." So just on that alone, I'll give Vision the title of sidekick.
Well, and I agree with you that too, and I look at it in a different thing with that is a lot of you've got the primary hero and then the sidekick, or maybe not necessarily hero, but you've got the primary and in the sidekick. Well, I think he's the sidekick in the arrangement because sometimes he's the center, meaning like sometimes it takes the sidekick to keep the primary on track.
Oh, absolutely.
Because she can't really control her powers worth a damn, and he kind of keeps her centered. And I think that's the aspect with a lot of them. And to move into another topic, like Chewie and Han.
Oh yeah,
I think Chewbacca kind of centers Han a little bit, and because he seemed to, he's a Wookiee, big giant, like they said.
Chewbacca is the straight man to Han's goofy antics.
Right, and you would think that this big furry thing that could rip your arms off and beat you with it would be like a barbarian type, but he's not. He's a lot more chill.
He is very chill.
Yeah, and that forces Han to be a little less renegade. And I think that's a good aspect
for the audience. Chewbacca, he conveyed a lot of stuff with his eyes.
Yes.
But you couldn't understand anything he was saying. I mean, you could kind of infer with some of his, as I'm swinging my arms around here on the podcast, some of his actions, he's angry, he's shaking his arms up in the air, and Han's down on the ground going, "Okay, let me get this. I'll be right back. I'll help you put that back together."
Yeah.
One of the classic lines is, Chewie's laughing. Han looks back at him and he's like, "Laugh it up, fuzzball."
Yeah.
you got this 7-foot tall monster that will
and,
destroy you.
Yes.
And he's just sitting there laughing.
And you're right. There are
I'm
some scenes.
being tough.
Yeah. There's some scenes where Chewie's kind of going off, but me as a fan of Star Wars since I was a baby, literally, I think that he comes across, even though he loses it sometimes, right? He still comes across as the calmer, more centering of the pair.
Oh yeah.
It's Han just can't do jack without Chewie, but I always have this feeling that Chewie could do stuff without Han.
And a lot of good sidekicks are that way. Yeah. I mean, you think that makes me think of like Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
Yes.
Dr. Watson do pretty much anything he wanted to.
Right.
He'd not have the intelligence that Holmes did. There were times Holmes did not have even though he was so well educated and right on everything, there was times that his interactions with people, he didn't connect the way that Watson did. And that's kind of the same thing with Chewbacca. Even though we may not understand, we get, because that's what we would do, I mean, we're going to laugh at each other, and one of us is going to retort with,
Yeah.
like, we're big and bad, and we're like, dude, whatever, and Sherlock Holmes would say things, but Watson kind of centered Holmes.
Yeah, and it's portrayed really well in those films with Robert Downey Jr.
Yes.
Because his Holmes is crazy.
He has no like social skills.
Yeah, no social skills at all. He's very abrasive. He's very crass. But Watson is the calming. He's the calming of it, and that it seems like with some of these big pairs, the sidekick tends to keep them kind of centered and calm.
Well, and Watson
I just
was
thought
also
about
a sounding board.
Yeah.
Holmes. Holmes would be figuring things out, and he would be throwing things at Watson, and Watson would have like a little nugget that he, and Holmes could see, whereas Watson's looking at like one thing. You give that one thing from Watson's to Holmes, and he sees 20 different things off of this one thing.
Yeah, and
you have to have that to kind of progress your quote unquote heroes, and that's where your sidekick, I think, really facilitates the development of the hero.
You're right, and I hadn't thought about that at all until we actually started talking this, even in the prep, that in a lot of these circumstances, it is, you've got the big heroic primary, and I don't know what is the term for the opposite of a sidekick. I don't know, but
henchman, I guess, because
no,
they don't really call them sidekicks.
Well, no, I meant if Robin is Batman's sidekick, then what's Batman? I guess the primary. I don't know, but we'll call it.
He would be the hero.
Yeah, the hero. I guess.
I know that sounds kind of.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, it's the hero.
He would be more the hero.
Right, but you can look at these guys, and again, we'll go back to it, and through my notes, we'll jump into movies for half a second. You got one of the greatest films of the '80s, which is Top Gun. That made they made every boy want to play beach volleyball and fly a jet, even though the beach volleyball scene was.
Let me look at my watch here while I flex.
But
I gotta go, guys.
But you look at Maverick as the primary hero. Well, Maverick was an absolute nutcase.
Oh yeah, he was
a cowboy, a cowboy, a loose gun. But who kept him calm from the back seat? Goose. Goose was his sidekick. Goose kept him calm until Goose died. Spoiler alert! If you haven't ever seen that freaking movie,
if you've not seen
Top
Top Gun by now, shame on you.
Yeah, it's not applicable, you bunch of losers. But anyway, but Goose was the calming factor in everything. Every scene in that movie, when Maverick's going off, Goose is there to try to get in the middle of stopping the fight between him and Iceman and all that kind of stuff.
I hate when she loses that loving feeling.
Yeah. You start singing. I'm hanging up right now. But no, that's pretty cool though to think about it in that way. And I actually haven't thought about that. But on my notes where I've wrote down some of these pairs, I was like, holy crap, Goose falls right along with that. So
yeah, I mean, and one that I like to think of. Going into movies here, but Sala from Indiana Jones.
Okay.
John Rhys Davies' character.
Yeah, and you met him,
like,
right? You met that guy because
super guy. I met him at Fanboy. He
right.
Was
so
awesome individual.
If you want to hear that story, go back to our episode on celebrities at cons. I always thought you'd be taller. Is the name?
I think
of
it's
that.
episode 19, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so. So go back and check that one out because that's a good story from Wes and his kids. But go ahead.
But I mean, because Indy's kind of the he's the hero, he's the main. But how many times did Sala pull Indy out of the fire?
All the time.
Because I think the one like where the Nazis have got Indy cornered and Sala, he sends his kids in. And the Nazis, they're kind of like, there's all these people around, there's all these kids, we can't just shoot the kids to get Jones, and they get him out of there.
Yeah.
And they tell him, they're like, next time children won't save you, but that was Sala to the rescue, and
right.
When he gets stuck, in the pit, with the snakes, and he's like, snakes, why did it have to be snakes?
Yeah.
But Sala was kind of like the we need help, this is my guy. And Sala knew stuff, and I think about like the when the assassin pours the poison on the dates, And Indy's walking around with this date, and he about eats it a couple times, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And he flips up in the air, and Solid catches it, because the monkey has already eaten one and died. And he's like, bad dates,
Yeah.
And so, sidekicks come in handy, folks. I mean, take care of your sidekicks.
Yeah, no, and those are great films, man. I love the Jones. I could watch those things all the time, man.
Well, that last one kind of gets a little.
Yeah, the last one doesn't count. Crystal Skull doesn't count.
Yeah,
but but a good duo like that isn't necessarily like we've been saying, where you got the sidekick that keeps the hero calm. This is a funny one, but Shrek and Donkey.
I was thinking that one.
Were you thinking Shrek and Donkey? It's actually the reverse on that.
It's the reverse because Donkey is just out there.
But you know what? Even with that story, though, the sidekick kind of drives the story because Donkey's a nut job and he's always getting into crap that Shrek's got to pull him out of.
And Shrek just wants to be left alone.
Right, but it actually drives Shrek into the whole adventure that, betters his life in the world.
And if you've not watched those movies,
they're so
shame
good,
on
man.
you. Those are some hilarious little movies.
They're cartoons, but man, they're really good. But yet that is the opposite.
Well, and another one that makes me think along those lines, and this is going back into TV, but Deputy Barney Fife.
Oh, yeah.
And Sheriff Andy Taylor.
Yes.
It's the exact same setup. Barney's the one that kind of is causing trouble, won't listen.
Right.
Overreacts.
Yeah. That whole series would have been about
the calming factor.
Right. The whole series would have been about 5 episodes if Barney hadn't have always gotten into stuff.
Yeah. But that's what's funny was everybody wanted to be Andy, but we all know that we were Barney.
Well, right. And if I know the story right, I think it was supposed to be the opposite. That Andy Griffith was supposed to be not the straight man. But when they ended up doing preliminary casting or whatever, they decided to do it the other way. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's the story behind it.
I know that the character of Sheriff Taylor first popped up in the Danny Thomas show.
Okay.
And like he'd pulled him over for speeding or something, and the Andy Griffith show was actually a spinoff from the Danny Thomas show because of that character, and he was the backwoods country bumpkin sheriff, but
right.
he instead of having like the city smarts, he had the country smarts. You have like book smarts and street smarts, and Andy had the street smarts where he could kind of poke fun at a lot of because Barney would always be super serious.
Oh, he's so serious.
He tried to be more educated than he actually was, or could do more. Because these hands are registered lethal weapons.
Yes, yeah.
Because he took karate classes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I always think of the time the episode of The Rock where they had. I think state police had caught these two robbers or something.
Yeah.
And they needed a place to hold them, so they put them in the Mayberry jail.
Right.
And, it's just this little, got 2 cells, and Aunt B is decorated. There's like doilies and blankets and stuff. Rocking chairs, things that you wouldn't normally have in a holding cell. And, they're trying to figure out how to get out, and Barney's he's like, here at the Rock we only have 2 rules: obey all rules, and rule number 2 is don't write on the walls. And they kind of trick, because Andy's like, leave them alone. The boys from state police will be here to pick them up in the morning.
Yeah.
And I don't know, they escaped 3 or 4 times, and every time, Barney would get. They'd get out and have Barney locked up, and then here come Andy walking them back in because he got them again. He's like, I'm getting tired of catching these guys.
But it just always seems like a lot of these pairings, either one side or the other, has to help the other guy out or girl out in order to accomplish anything, because one of them just isn't quite up to par with the other one.
Well, and then there's times that you have your sidekick causes a lot of the trouble, or I won't say causes, but gets into.
Yes.
the trouble, and then the hero has to get the sidekick out of trouble. And the one that comes to mind for me, and it should for you because you're a DC guy, Jimmy Olsen.
Right. Yep.
Because how many times did that boy get in trouble and get on his watch and here comes Superman to save the day? You know.
Yeah. It's like, come on, man! I've got all this other stuff I've got to do, and you keep getting your ass hemmed up.
Seriously, Jimmy.
yeah.
I just got you out of that volcano yesterday. I mean, just which I know that was how you told the story. You know, but it's like, how can one kid that takes these pictures get in this much trouble?
Yeah. Like, dude, what's wrong with you, man?
But you know that's kind of I don't know, funny, because he's trying to help Superman, you know, and he would get some kind of information, you know, a picture, or you know, Lois would get some scoop on the story, and of course they get caught by the bad guys, and you know, here comes the big blue Boy Scout to save the day.
Yes.
Which, you know, that was where like your hero is nigh on infallible.
Right.
And your sidekick is a complete goof, you know.
Yeah.
And
well, you got like unlikely hero pairs, unlikely to begin with, like Frodo and Sam. You know, and
see, I have a hard time putting Sam as a sidekick, though. But
I guess that's the question. Is, you know, does Frodo even make it without Sam? No,
absolutely not.
No, he doesn't. He's got to have him. But again, it goes back to some of these where there is the perceived primary hero, but they would be totally unsuccessful without that sidekick. I mean, literally, Sam carries.
Well, I think Tolkien didn't Tolkien say that Samwise was actually the hero of the Lord of the Rings trilogy?
Yeah, I think so. Because if it wasn't for him, it would not have succeeded. The Fellowship would not have succeeded, you know. So, you know, there is that. So,
but in a way, you could say that, you know, Sam kind of did the Robin to Nightwing. You know, he transitions from being the sidekick to becoming a hero, especially like when he goes back to the Shire.
Yes,
in the books, you know, I love the films, but there's so much that they leave out. Because when they return to the Shire, it's just the way we left it. Well, it's not the way it happens.
No. I don't get so technical.
But if we'd added that in, there's another like 3 hours worth of movie.
Well, that's why I like the Hobbit movies better, because they can elaborate on the whole story because they made 3. I like that better, but that's just me.
But
well, you don't
yeah,
agree with
old,
that one?
Good old Samwise Gamgee, the gardener.
Well, look at Star Wars again. R2-D2 and C-3PO.
Oh yes. How many times did R2 save the day?
But who's the sidekick there? You know, in my opinion, C-3PO is the sidekick.
Yeah, that too. 3PO is definitely the sidekick.
Yes.
But R2 is the sidekick to Luke. Because especially like the trench run on the first Death Star.
Right. Yes.
You know, he's like at stabilizers, bro. So, you know, and R2's back there fixing it, and then R2 gets hit, and then like everybody's like, "Oh crap!" You know, he's like, "I just lost R2." And when he says that, you can tell at that moment how much he relies on R2.
Yeah, and he's got to have it.
I lost R2.
Right.
You know, and but you know that little droid. He caused a lot of trouble too.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. He really caused the trouble when when it was necessary for the story or whatever. But I think those two together make the pairing, as you might say, for sidekicks. But C-3PO is definitely the sidekick to R2-D2. I agree. But I agree with that.
You know, that's kind of one of those things though, because as frazzled as 3PO can get, you know, he kind of brings R2 in, or R2 brings him in. You know,
right? He's got to keep him
on the scene.
He's got to keep him calm. Yeah.
But you know, it was one of those ones that I was like, do I lead with that one? You know, or do you lead with Chewbacca? I mean, because there were so many pairings in those movies that you could argue at different times, different people were sidekicks for different heroes. Because, like when you go to Cloud City, Chewbacca is kind of a sidekick for Leia.
Yeah.
Because Han's like, you've got to protect the princess, and you're thinking, okay, well, Chewie's going to be the hero. And Leia's like, give me that blaster. Screw this. I'm kicking butt. So it was really well written, and you can't help but want to root for the sidekicks on a lot of these.
Oh, yeah.
You can't help but want to root for Robin or Chewbacca or R2, 3PO, whoever it is. And I think that's what makes for a good sidekick, when they can become as popular as the hero.
Well, yeah. We asked a question the other day on Facebook about sidekicks, and I wanted to mention some of the ones that some of the fans have said. Luke Petrie talked about Darkwing and Launchpad.
Oh,
Darkwing
I
Duck.
didn't even think of it. Yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, that's a cool one. That's an unorthodox
that
one.
cartoon,
Yeah,
man.
that was good stuff. Perfect Pat brought up. Let's see. What does he say? Jason Todd version of Robin. He says his least favorite is Speedy when he was Green Arrow's sidekick. Yes.
Well, I mean, Roy was basically Green Arrow in just a different colored costume.
Yes.
A younger version.
So yeah. And Luke Petrie also said the Tick and Arthur. Spoon. He says yes, and I thought that was a good one too.
And that's one of those ones where Arthur is definitely the calming effect on the Tick.
Oh yeah, obviously, hell, the Tick is crazy. But what about some? What else you got there, Wes? What else you thinking, man?
Well, one that kind of comes to mind was, and I've got a couple different ones on this, so stay with me for a minute.
Yeah, I'm right here.
But you got, like you have Iron Man. Well, you had War Machine.
Yes.
Rhodey was Tony's friend. He actually filled in as Iron Man for a while, but he became a hero in his own right.
Right.
With the War Machine armor, and I don't think people that are only fans of the movies understand how big a role Rhodey played.
You're right, and I read a lot of Iron Man back when we were kids.
I knew you were a big Iron Man fan.
Yeah, I got a ton. I got a couple long boxes of Iron Man over in my closet, and those old school Iron Mans were great. And you're right, yeah, all the Armor Wars stuff, and yeah. Now that's a good one, and it's neat. That's another aspect of it when the sidekick becomes their own.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just. Well, he's just a copy of. No, there's some differences there.
No, absolutely right. Yeah,
But sticking with Iron Man, but if you go to the movies in the MCU, Jarvis, his AI.
Yes.
There's that calming effect again, when you're crazy, out of control superhero.
Yep.
And Jarvis, a lot of times, is funnier than Tony.
Yeah.
In certain scenes, just the sarcasm and the dry wit. But in the comics, Jarvis was his actual butler.
Right, and that's where he got the mentality or whatever to program it. Right. Yeah.
But and then I always liked Happy. He's his chauffeur / bodyguard.
Yeah.
I mean, but I love the way that they did him in the films.
Yeah.
Except for the third one, I thought they took some
liberties.
Well, I didn't care for the way that they treated Happy.
I got you.
And I know that Favreau wasn't the director on the third Iron Man, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, because Favreau's awesome, so we can't.
I love the first the first Iron Man movie. Just the way Happy was just he was a buddy, but you knew he wasn't same level as Tony.
Yeah.
But he was definitely that sidekick, but he would he was there to help out. Like in the second Iron Man movie, when Black Widow, she's like, "You got to get me to Hammer Industries," And they get there, and she's like, stay in the car. And he's like, I'm going in with you. And he fights the one dude. You know, Black Widow takes out like 12, 13 guys. And Happy's like, I got him.
Yeah,
like,
I got one.
All these people are laying around on the floor that she took out. He got the one guy. But, you know, he did the comic relief and some exposition. And just, he was a fun character.
Yeah.
So,
you know, another show that has an interesting dynamic was X-Files. And Mulder and Scully. So who's the sidekick there? Yeah, I think it really kind of depended on the situation.
It depended on the episode.
Right. If it really was a supernatural, you know, UFO alien type thing,
aliens.
Then, right. Then Scully was the sidekick to Crazy Mulder, or vice versa. It kind of became
there's a logical answer for this happening.
She was a primary.
She was primary, but I would say it was probably 60-40.
Yeah, probably so. But if you put them together as a go ahead.
Well, I was going to say 60-40 because the show was, I don't want to say it was centered on Mulder, but there was so much history that was built up around like his sister
with his disappearing sister,
and all that. I kind of lean a little more towards spooky on that one.
Yeah. But if you put them together as it is, you're right, 60-40 kind of bounce back. Then who was the team sidekick? The lone gunman.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Frohike Byers Langley. Yeah, those crazy freaking nut job conspiracy theorist guys. I love those guys.
Stronger.
Yeah, I want to hang out with them dudes. They're nuts. But those were the sidekicks for the team of Mulder and Scully, I think.
Yeah, but they each brought a different phase. I mean, because Byron was he was the FCC guy or former FCC guy,
right?
Very straight laced and by the book, and you can tell by his appearance because he always had a suit on.
That's right.
And then, the rest of the team, it kind of goes downhill quick.
Goes a little nuts from there.
But in that group, they all kind of balance each other out, which helps balance Mulder and Scully out.
Yes.
Because Scully was always no, Mulder was always yes, and those guys were like, well, what if it's kind of in the middle?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, she's kind of right, you're kind of right, you know. But that was one of those ones that you could even throw A.D. Skinner in as a sidekick, because later on when he really starts helping Mulder and Scully,
right? Yes.
In more, because in the beginning he was more of an impediment to a lot of investigations.
Yes, he
and
did.
And as the series evolved, he became more of an ally.
He did what the real life Dr. Heinig did for Project Blue Book, which was the Air Force's third or fourth investigative unit into UFOs, mm-hmm. and he was actually hired on to debunk everything. And as he progressed through his career, he started to believe. And started trying to validate some of these, and he kept getting crushed by the government. I listened to his audio book, the Heinig Report, the truth behind Project Blue Book. It doesn't have a lot of positive things to say about the agency he worked for 30-something years. But speaking of X-Files and Mulder and Scully, if you want to listen to the funny story about me meeting Gillian Anderson and the scared look on her face in the picture that I have with her behind me on the wall over here, that is also in episode 7.
True story.
I believe it is. I believe it is in episode 17, Celebrities at Conventions. I really thought you'd be taller. That's episode 17 for us. But again, with the X-Files, what about when a hero has? I mean, do you think the Smoking Man at some point was a bit of a sidekick-ish? Maybe providing them with a little bit of information? I don't know.
I think he was more of an antagonist.
Yeah, okay. But, I mean, I guess maybe antagonists can be... there can be story drivers. I'm stupid. They can't be sidekicks.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was more of to move... Because the whole alien story arc was the big...
Right.
You know, there was smaller
ones,
but
kept
that was
going back
the
to
overreaching one. Yeah. And what did he know? What was he involved in? And I will always love the line, because I know you were a Don Beebe fan back in the day.
I was, yes.
Buffalo Bills, and Buffalo Bills will never win a Super Bowl as long as I'm alive.
Yes, damn you!
I always thought that.
Yes,
because I know we were big Bills fans, but when he said that, I was just like, I've got to go check.
Yeah. That's good stuff. That's back when I liked the NFL, a long time ago. Another show that I know is near and dear to your heart. What about Willow to Buffy? And Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That's another one. Where,
it's a really good show for the time frame. It really was.
Well, they didn't. They made a good show, but they didn't take themselves too serious.
Right.
Because there would be things in the show that they're kind of like, yeah, we're laughing along with you. But Willow, starting out early on, she definitely was the sidekick to Buffy.
Right.
But as the show went on, when, spoiler alert, Willow becomes a witch and she becomes very powerful.
Right.
Xander kind of takes the role of Buffy's sidekick, and then Buffy kind of gets to the point where she doesn't have the sidekick, and Xander, he never gets like the full hero status.
Right.
He really is a support character, but him and Willow always kind of had a little. There was chemistry there. Yeah, I mean, but Willow ends up, she's not into guys, but she definitely in the beginning was the sidekick, and then I think it progressed to Xander being the sidekick, and then ultimately the three of them were their own standalone hero.
Right. And something that I thought about is we've been talking about pairs, two living things being, the hero and the sidekick. What about if one thing is an inanimate object, like in Knight Rider?
I was fixing to say
Kit. You got Michael Knight, who's the hero. Then you got his sidekick, the car, who's Kit. But that's another one of those circumstances where the straight man or straight car is the sidekick, right?
Yeah.
It keeps him centered, keeps him on task, saves his ass all the time, and has some stupid steering wheel that you couldn't really use. But the point is
it looked cool though.
It did look cool.
It was the 80s. It looked cool.
Yeah, it looked cool. But that's one of those things. Can you think of any others where there's like an object as the sidekick, I guess?
Oh gosh, I mean,
it's an interesting question. I just thought about it. I didn't prepare for it, but.
Well, I mean, I always kind of, harken back to like the Millennium Falcon. The Falcon is not sentient, although I really wonder about that because when 3PO mentions, he's like, I don't know where your computer learned to communicate, but it's that was a character in and of itself, kind of like Serenity. The ship was actually.
Right, I agree that those
character.
I agree that those are characters.
I think Kit kind of had a special place because he very much was a character.
Yeah, now Kit was a character, but I believe Kit was also it can qualify as a sidekick. Now the Falcon, Serenity, I think those are inanimate object characters in the show, but I don't necessarily think that they're really sidekicks. And,
I will.
Yeah. Now we did discuss in depth how awesome those are to sci-fi movies. There in episode 23, sci-fi spaceships and why Thrawn is awesome, and that's so factual. So check out that if you want to hear us talk about the Falcon and Serenity. But another inanimate object that I thought was important to a character as their sidekick is, and I'm a Walking Dead fan, and Negan is like my favorite character, even though he was a villain for the most of it. His bat, Lucille, a weird representative of his dead wife, and the reason I think that is a sidekick to him is that there during that story arc, that the Savior War, is that I think he could do everything by himself as long as he had that bat. And, it didn't necessarily, I guess it kind of saved him, but to him, that was the only thing that was really important to him. So, I don't know. that I was trying to think of along the line of objects that could be sidekicks.
You got me thinking about that, and the only one that I can really, off the top of my head, think about would be the Sword of Omens.
Okay.
From Thundercats.
Okay.
Because the Eye of Thundera, the mystical gem, but it could react to Lino's thoughts. I mean, it became a plot device. Like they write themselves in a corner. The Sword of Omens can do this, and it would get him out of said situation.
Right.
But that's the only inanimate object I can think of right off the top of my head that would kind of be like a sidekick, because you think of Lino and you think of the sword.
Yeah. It was
more so He-Man sword.
Right.
Because when I go He-Man, I want Orko.
Right. Okay.
As far as sidekick.
Or Man-at-Arms. Large groups like that kind of have a whole bunch of sidekicks. You know what I mean? It's just
those ensemble shows. I guess it kind of depends on how you pair them up.
Okay. All right.
Because if you put Man-at-Arms and Orko together, Orko is definitely the sidekick.
Yeah. Yeah.
You put He-Man and Man-at-Arms together, it's like
there's always somebody.
He-Man
playing
started the show.
fiddle. Yeah. You can't really put him. But
it's like.
And here's one that I always butcher the name, but Drist and his cat, Guinevere. Is that how you say it?
I don't know if it's Guinevere or Guinevere.
I can never freaking say it, but anyway, the Panther.
If you know, please
spell it out or something. Yeah, spell it out on social media for me, because I can never pronounce it correctly. But
that's like when you get into like Tolkien and Elvish names. I'm like, oh Lord, here we go.
Yes,
I'm gonna try my best.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean that would be very much a sidekick.
Absolutely, because it's the one person he could always depend on that's always there with him.
Yes.
So,
and those are really well written. If you've not read any of Drist,
yes.
You need to.
I'm going to go back and get the audiobooks off of Audible and listen to them, because those are awesome, and those are absolutely great books. But what about villains, man? What about villains? We haven't talked about villains with their sidekicks, but there are some. And you made the horrible joke earlier about me being Harley to your Joker, which is garbage. But
hey,
anyway.
We've seen you in those tight pants.
You have not, sir. Well, the Deadpool outfit, so maybe there's that. But there is. So I guess but maybe with villains it's kind of different because they're both nuts.
With Joker, he's got Harley, and it was funny because Harley was just written for the Batman the animated series.
But it's just exploded though.
And it exploded, and I don't think now that you could consider her a sidekick in any form. I mean, because she's moved past where she was originally envisioned. I mean, she's transformed and became, I'll say, an anti-hero. I would say that. I won't go as far as say, but it's kind of like I think of Bob, Agent of Hydra, with Deadpool. Right. I don't know if you're familiar with Bob, but he was an agent of Hydra.
Okay.
And long story short, he ends up teaming up with Deadpool. And he's got no superpowers. I mean, it's just like if one of us was to put a suit on, and just okay, we got some guns and let's go do some stuff.
Well then,
he kind of helps the comedy on a lot of stuff,
right?
But
another. Go ahead. Another villain sidekick. This is funny, but Mini-Me and Dr. Evil.
Oh. Have you not seen the Austin Powers movie?
That was on like some obscure TV channel back a few months ago, and I had to sit and watch some of that because I had forgotten how horribly good.
Well, we didn't know if you were coming back or not. We got a little impatient. We made a clone. But
it's so funny,
your size. A little more Vern Troyer.
I thought it was good.
But just when he's sitting in the chair, he's got the little chair sitting on the table, and he's got the little cat, and he's petting it just like Dr. Evil. I mean,
That's good stuff, man.
I mean, because it's so hard for villains to have a sidekick, but I guess that would
I think it is in that,
sidekick.
But I was trying to think of that earlier. So if any of you guys that, and girls that listen to the show, and if you can think of a villain and their sidekick, let us know on that too. Post on
Skeletor
Facebook or
Beast
Instagram.
Man would.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but
I mean, if you go with the Funimation, or not Funimation, but the
Filmation
cartoon. I mean,
yeah.
maybe,
I mean, but in some storylines like that, it's a little. I think it's a little difficult because it's always a team thing. You know, it's Skeletor kind of had henchmen, but is any of them really a sidekick? No, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, that was like G.I. Joe. I mean.
Who's really a sidekick on that?
The only ones that I could really think of, like Snake Eyes had Timber, his wolf.
Well, I guess it's an animal, yeah.
Shipwreck had Polly, and Polly could talk, so Polly was a smart ass.
Well, right. Yeah. So I mean, okay, I'll give you that one. I guess for animals as sidekicks, yeah.
Spirit and Freedom, but I'm like, I couldn't think of any in G.I. Joe that were really like a sidekick, because they were teams,
No, they weren't. I mean, unless
you went with Alpine and Bazooka, maybe.
Or Zartan and the Renegades.
Oh, the Dreadnoughts?
Or the Dreadnoughts, yes, the Dreadnoughts, sorry. The Dreadnoughts were kind of sidekicks for him. They sort of worked for him. See, those it's interesting because those type of storylines, well, those are a little difficult to identify a sidekick out of. More of a kind of everybody working together sort of thing, like a team.
I mean, that's the only ones I could think of. Maybe
like you look
Alpine and Bazooka, right? They were kind of like, it's kind of like a buddy cop movie.
Yeah,
I
mean, because
Alpine was the straight guy, and Bazooka was the goof.
Right. I mean, you look at look at the Avengers. Who's the sidekick and who's the primary? Well, I don't know. I mean, you could, I guess,
Hawkeye was the sidekick.
Well, okay, yeah. All right. I mean, you could say
bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
You could say Captain was the primary, and the rest of them were sidekicks, but that's not necessarily true.
Well, I mean, Tony, he builds everything, designs everything, pays for everything, makes everybody look cooler. What? I mean, going to the Avengers, is Agent Coulson a sidekick of Nick Fury?
Well, maybe so.
Is Maria Hill a sidekick? Or
I guess in some of those groups of superheroes, whether it's the Avengers or the Justice League, I guess you've got a tier. You have a couple tiers. You have a tier of primary heroes, right?
In both of them.
And then you've got a tier of supporting characters. You know what I mean? Because
we're looking at you, Cyborg.
Yes, we're looking at you. No, yeah, right. Because Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and then you got everybody else.
Yeah.
Robin is Batman's sidekick, but I guess he's a sidekick to the whole team.
Well, you got Wally West as
to a degree.
As Kid Flash, Aqualad.
Aqualad.
What?
Damn, that's a horrible name for a character. I just think
Donna Troy. She was like Wonder Girl.
Right.
She was like a Wonder Woman. She had a very complicated path. I never did understand if she was a clone or from outer space or like.
What are you?
Well, I mean, when you get different writers and different times and different versions and people kind of put their own mark on things,
Yeah.
So much of it changes.
Right.
The mythos, and you're not sure what are we going with, and that's why, like I said with Bucky, most people know him from the MCU,
right,
and don't realize that he was a kid sidekick, along the lines of Robin. So
that's true.
But your sidekicks, I think characters like Bucky and Robin show that you can take a sidekick and turn them into a viable
the development story. They won't always stay second fiddle. They'll get that.
And I mean, because I know a lot of people that are Nightwing fans. I mean, huge Nightwing fans.
Yeah, he's pretty cool, man. He's pretty cool. I always wanted him to show up on the Arrow series and just kick the shit out of Arrow because I like Arrow, but as the seasons come along, he got kind of wussy, and I didn't like it. So I wanted him to show up and beat the crap out of him.
I lost interest in. I mean, granted, I'm not a huge DC fan, but I was on this island for 5 years, and then they show all these stories where he was off the island, and I'm like, what?
What the hell did you do on the island? But no,
I was on the island for like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
but So
no, those are that's some pretty good discussion today, I think.
And we didn't even get to tattoo on
Tattoo?
Fantasy Island.
Oh my God! Okay,
the plane,
dude, you're the oldest of the old nerdy old men. And for saying something, even though they were the same age, saying something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't even get to Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh. I mean, come
on.
Oh,
geez. Come on, man! Come on, man!
Oh man!
Come on! Funny. You mentioned the Winnie the Pooh. There is a I don't know why I even thought about this, but
tread carefully.
Our buddy Pat that runs and owns Brick House Collectibles in Knoxville in the Farragut area, he actually posted a thing where they're coming out with a new. I don't know if your kids like Winnie the Pooh or not, but they've got a Lego set series coming out about Winnie the Pooh. And it's got like the tree that he lives in, and it's like dude. It's one of the coolest Lego sets I believe I've ever seen, man. It's really nice, and the tree itself is actually like really cool, and it's like really pretty, dude. Yeah, that's not out yet, but I'd yell at him, man, because I'm sure he could hold you on, because those are it's really neat, man. I mean, I like miniature stuff anyway, and that one's really cool. But speaking of all of the stores that we've been to, and the ones that we're going to, I'm not going to give too much information away. But Redneck Wes and I, in conjunction with these awesome store owners, we're working on a little interactive game kind of thing for the listeners. So we're putting up some signs at these stores that are allowing us to do that says the business has been featured on the Nerdy Old Men podcast, and we've got a QR code that takes you to the show. And so when you see those in the stores, make sure that you tell the people working in the stores, hey, I heard you guys on the Nerdy Old Men podcast, and which has happened recently. Last episode, we did the Warp, and John down there told us, didn't he, Wes, that he's had some people come in. Yeah, so we
did not know about the store.
Yep.
And found it because of the podcast.
Yes.
So, which is awesome.
Yes.
It's what we want.
That's what we want to
help
to
build
show
this
off these
community and these small businesses that are, out there that have some really cool things that you need to go check out.
That's right. So we're coming up with a little game kind of a thing, and to go in conjunction with our signs and the stuff at the stores. So more on that to follow, and we'll do that. Also, if you guys out there that are listening to us that have a business that would like to be featured on the show, reach out to us too. We'd love to do that. Again, we can always come remotely, come to your place or do it remotely, whatever you want to do. But we want to do that. As usual, all of our fans, and we really appreciate it, send us ideas for shows, either on Instagram. Wes runs that for us, and I run the Facebook. Send us messages. And let's get some chatter going about some future ideas.
Tell us things that you like, that you would like to hear on the show. Maybe there's a shop or a comic book store or game store, whatever, that is really cool that maybe we've not heard about yet. And you're like, hey, you need to go check these guys out. Absolutely,
because we want to do that kind of stuff. Now, normally, most of our shows we've done the Nerdy Old Man Rapid Fire question session. However, since it's just me and Wes today, we're going to pose a question to you as the fan base. Okay?
All righty, here we go.
Yes, Wes, and we talked about it pre-show. What are we asking them?
We're asking, on the Nerdy Old Men podcast, who is the sidekick on this show? Is it the old bald man Chad? Or is it Redneck Wes? And you decide. Let us know.
That's right. We all know the answer to this. So
it's Chad.
It will not hurt Wes's feelings to identify him as the sidekick. All right, we'll get him a cool costume. It'll be awesome. But
preferably one with some pants.
So we may try to set up some sort of survey kind of poll thing, or we may just write it down from people that
we all know Chad can't count those, so yeah, I'll be writing it down.
No one told me there'd be math. That's why I like newer D&D editions. There's less math.
Where are the math rocks at?
There's no math. I can't count. I can only go to 20. I don't have any more fingers or toes. But no, let's do that, because I think that would be pretty fun, a fun thing. And throw some other crap in there, too, like why you think Wes is the sidekick as he is. Or what kind of costume. What kind of costume he should wear.
The shorty shorts there. We're gonna go.
Don't be hating. But
hey, we may even put pictures on.
No, we're not going to do
that. We're not doing pictures.
No, we have to keep our fans. But
but yeah, let us know who you think. This is just something kind of silly that Chad and I came up with. But I told him, I said, well, I'll let you put it on there because I just want to prove to you that you are the sidekick.
You prove nothing. But and before we go, let's also mention that we do have some of our special edition Nerdy Old Men podcast T-shirts.
Yes,
Wes has those on hand. They're limited sizes and limited number. Okay,
but we have them in gray and new.
Like OD green, yeah, like military green. Wes has some of those. We will periodically be getting some of those on hand from a local business because we like to support local businesses. And the name of that business is
Mystic Mountain. They are up here in La Follette. Amy makes some really great T-shirts.
Yes.
She's printed 2 batches for us now.
Yes.
We've given those out when we've been on location.
That's right.
And sold a few of them. So if you would
that's
like
right.
to purchase one of those, they're going for $15. And
yes.
You can contact us or...
And we'll get them to you.
You might see us out and about. And
ship them to you, or we'll deliver them to you. But now these special edition T-shirts are the ones that we give people that we interview. So all those folks that we interview get one of those. So if you want to be part of that exclusive club, we can make sure that happens. Now, if you don't, if you end up wanting one and they're sold out, or we don't have one currently at the time, or you want a different product with our logo on it, be sure to go look at our Teespring website, our Teespring store. The link is in the show description, and we have a bunch of different products there, a couple different versions of our logo, and those are drop shipped, so those are available at any time. You can purchase those and they'll get shipped directly to you from Teespring. We receive a very minor profit on that, but we turn all that into the show. We just want people to show their pride on the show and to help us advertise. So that's also available, so we certainly appreciate that. Be sure to go on there and pick who you think the sidekick is. It'll obviously be me. It'll not be me. It'll actually be Wes. I am the primary. But until next time, this is the Nerdy Old Men Podcast, our 25th episode.
Woohoo! Y'all.